My name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 7, which is the week after that I wildcarded myself. But like I said, all season I'm going to continue doing the weekly wildcard draft series throughout the season from Game Week 1 through Game Week 38, just to give you guys a chance to see what I think is the best squad to have in the Fantasy Premier League going forward in the next few game weeks. So this will be especially helpful for those of you guys who are on a wildcard in Game Week 7 yourself, but even for those of you guys that have either used your wildcard or are still waiting to use your wildcard later on in the season. I think it's nice to just give you an outlook for the best players to have currently in FPL. So if you haven't seen this already, I do this in the style of an NBA or NFL style draft, where the number one player that I'm going to present to you, the number one pick as it were, is going to be the player that I think is the most important player to have currently in FPL. And then the 15th player is going to be someone that has made the squad, but that I'm the most unsure about having in the squad, basically. So with that out of the way, let's go into the squad and see who's the number one pick this week. And it is still Erling Haaland. Yes, he blanked last time around against Newcastle. Yes, his expected numbers weren't as good as they had been previously in the season. But if you've seen my walkthrough from these weekend's games, I think it was kind of unlucky in some points just because Gundogan was basically really, really bad in that game. And also just he tends to struggle against Newcastle. That's nothing new. He struggles a bit with Dan Burn, the physicality of him as well. So yeah, I think he's still the best captain's option in most game weeks going forward, especially against Southampton in Game Week 9. He could potentially be a triple captaincy choice there as well. Wolves away should be a really good fixture. Fulham at home, even though Fulham are better defensively than expected. So maybe this week you could still go for a differential captain if you dare. But as someone that went against Haaland as captain last week, it's not really a fun experience because you're just waiting for him to score each and every single attack that Man City have, and they have so many attacks throughout the game. It's not really the best experience, and even though it feels momentous when he doesn't score and you manage to survive a Haaland captaincy or going without Haaland as captain, you still might not get that many points out of it anyway, because I did with Saka. I had him as captain instead. He got 3 points, so it earned me 1 point in the end, even though it felt a lot bigger because surviving a Haaland captaincy is pretty scary stuff. But yeah, Haaland is still amazing. I think City are going to be not as good, obviously, with Rodri out for most of the season, and also, or at least, or potentially even the whole season, and also De Bruyne out currently, and Foden still not fully into the team. I think Foden will play this game, but I think that also, I don't know, there are some issues with Man City, but I still think Haaland is a fantastic player to have. Obviously, he's my number one pick, just because of the fixtures alone. Man City are still expected to win each and every game, and Haaland is the best captaincy option each and every week. So don't really have to talk about it too much, but I think anyone that has considered not having Haaland just because he blanked one game week, I don't think it works like that. Should be noted that obviously he's so damn expensive. He's 15.3 now. He's super expensive. So when he blanks, you're most likely going to get a red arrow when you have Haaland. That's just a matter of fact. But you're also going to get a red arrow if you go without Haaland, because he's most likely going to score 1 or 2 or potentially even 3 goals, or potentially even 4 goals at some point this season. So yeah, I still think he's an amazing player, especially with the fixtures that they have, and especially with him as the best captain's option in Game Week 8 and 9 in particular. But yeah, that's it on number 1. Let's move on to number 2, which is going to be Dominic Solanke, actually. I was just really impressed with what I saw from Spurs. Been really impressed with what I've seen from Solanke the last 2 game weeks, or pretty much the whole season. He's getting a lot of chances. He's going to score a lot of goals as well. He showed that with Bournemouth last season. Now he plays for a better team. He's a really good player. He's potentially on penalties as well, especially when Son is potentially out injured as well. And I think the fixtures for Spurs are looking pretty good as well. Brighton next game week, that could actually be classified as an easy game after we saw what Brighton did against Chelsea. If they come to play against Spurs the same way, this game could have a lot of goals, especially for Spurs as well. So I think Solanke is a fantastic pick from this game week. Obviously, I have him as number 2 pick. That's a pretty big plus for him. I think Spurs just have really good fixtures. I think they are undervalued as assets. I think Spurs are a better team that people give them credit for, and Solanke is a fantastic player who's priced at 7.5 because he was the striker for Bournemouth and not the striker for Spurs. I think if it was at Spurs before they made the prices, he probably would have been at least 8.5, I think, this season. So I think he's very much underpriced. They have really good fixtures, and they are looking really, really in form as well. So Solanke is my number 2 pick for that reason. Number 3, we have Brennan Mbeumo, who is, once again, a really, really good pick. Really nice fixtures. Wolves at home and United away, as we saw with Spurs. That is a pretty good fixture. Ipswich at home is also a really, really nice fixture. So for the next 3 fixtures, Mbeumo is a really good player to have. Yes, they didn't look quite as attacking and quite as good without Wissa against West Ham this past game week, but Mbeumo still scored. He scored after 1 minute. He's just that guy. He's on penalties. He's on set pieces sometimes. He's the talisman for Brentford, and he's just an amazing pick still, especially with those fixtures that they have. So he comes in at number 3. I don't think you should worry too much about how Brentford looked against West Ham. I think that's partly down to how good West Ham were defensively compared to what they have been earlier in the season with Todibo in central defense. But if you want to see me break down that game and all the other games from this past weekend, you can check out my FPL eye test video from yesterday, basically. But that's Mbeumo at number 3. Number 4, we have Gabriel Magalhaes, and you can see from his fixtures, they are getting tougher and tougher, but I think Arsenal are sort of like, we talk about fixture proof, and I think Arsenal defenders are probably not that affected as much playing against tougher teams, because that makes Arsenal's line up a bit more defensively. And they are, especially when they line up defensively, it's really hard to score against Arsenal. So I think Gabriel is someone that can keep a clean sheet every single game week. He's someone that could also score every single game week. He gets so many big chances from the corners that Arsenal are so good at. So I think Gabriel is just a no-brainer pick still in defense. He seems completely nailed. Calafiori and Timber are playing more as fullbacks than centre-backs. So I think Gabriel is a fantastic pick, especially against Southampton. He could easily score some goals there as well. So yeah, Gabriel is a fantastic pick. The best defender to have in the game currently, and he's number 4 for that reason. Number 5, we have Morgan Rogers. Again, people have had some concerns with him, especially with his minutes. He was subbed off early this game, which hasn't really happened in the past, but I think that was down to injuries and stuff, and he's back in training now, so that injury shouldn't be like a long-term thing. I think Rogers is still a fantastic player. He's returned in the last 2 game weeks, getting 10 points in game week 5 and getting 7 points in game week 6. I think it's just going to keep going. He's a fantastic player at a really, really cheap price. So I think he's someone that I just want to keep for the most of the season, basically, because Aston Villa are just such a good team as well, and he has such an important role for them, and he is, just a fantastic player in general. So he comes in at number 5. I don't think the fixtures are that big of a concern. Man United at home next, obviously, which is a really, really good fixture considering how bad Man United are. I should probably update the colors for Man United because they shouldn't really be grey. It shouldn't be like a middle tough fixture. It should actually be counted as an easy fixture now, I think, currently with how Man United are looking currently. Fulham away is a tough game from an attacking perspective, I think. Then Bournemouth at home is a decent game. Spurs, they can concede goals, so I don't know. I don't think the fixtures matter that much for Aston Villa either. They can beat the best sides. They can draw against Ipswich. That's kind of the team that they are. And I think they can score against anyone. And I think Rodgers is fantastic, so he comes in at number 5. Number 6, we have Kai Havertz. So all 3 strikers have been picked already. I think Havertz, especially for this next game week against Southampton, I think he could be a sneaky captaincy pick. Seeing how many chances he got against Leicester, that's only going to get even better against Southampton, who are probably even worse than Leicester. So I think Havertz is a really good pick in general, especially for this next upcoming game week. After that, you could potentially sell him. Bournemouth away is still a decent fixture, but game week 9, you could move him on and go to someone like Nicholas Jackson. I'm going to talk more about that Chelsea-Arsenal type of swap as well eventually in this video. But yeah, Havertz is a fantastic player. He plays as a striker for Arsenal, and he's getting a lot of chances. Yeah, I think it's just a really good pick to have. And he's someone that I'm really happy to have, especially for this game against Southampton. But next week, maybe he'll drop out of the Wildcard draft. But still, I think Arsenal are really good. And he might be the best Arsenal attacking asset. That's at least what I've had for this team, because I have him as number 6 as the first Arsenal attacking asset. But let's move on to number 7, which is another Arsenal attacking player, and that's Bukayo Saka. It's pretty much a toss-up between him and Havertz, but I think I've picked Havertz more or like a higher pick because he is cheaper. I think that's the main difference, and also just the fact that Havertz is playing more like he is a striker. Obviously, he's way more of a goal threat. Saka is more of an assist threat. He's on penalties, obviously, which helps him as well. But with the price included on top of that, I think Havertz is just slightly better than Saka currently. I did mention the Chelsea thing. I think Chelsea's next 2 fixtures are tough enough for me to not have Chelsea attacking assets, but I'm going to talk about them, Palmer and Jackson, eventually. But I think you could easily swap both Saka and Havertz for Jackson and Palmer in Game Week 9, especially when Arsenal's fixtures get tougher, Chelsea's fixtures get easier. I think that could be a good jumping off point from Arsenal to Chelsea. Maybe not both at the same time, but maybe one at least. Probably Saka to Palmer, I think, is going to be a really popular transfer in Game Week 9. But Saka, still really, really involved. He got bonus points despite not getting goals and assists last game, and he was really involved in a lot of the game. More so when it comes to assists than goals. I think that's going to be more of the case with Ødegaard out, but I think Ødegaard is going to be back for Game Week 9. or game week 8 even against Bournemouth away. So I don't think that's going to affect Saka too much. And I think the penalties could also come for Saka, which we still haven't really seen so far this season. So Saka is also a really good pick, especially for this next game week against Southampton at home. Again, Saka and Havertz are both captain's options this week if you want to go differential and go away from Haaland. But yeah, just the fixtures coming up now for Saka and Havertz are just too good with the Southampton fixture in particular. So I've picked both of them in the Wildcard draft, and I think they are really good really good players to have, despite them sort of being disappointing last game week against Leicester when we expected more from them. But they did score 4 goals in that game. Saka and Havertz unlucky not to get more points, and I think there are still really good picks. Number 8, we have Rico Lewis. Speaking of someone that I have expected more points from so far this season, he's sort of been points dodging, both in terms of clean sheets, especially for City. They have some of the best numbers defensively in the league, but once again, they just keep conceding stupid goals every single game week. That is sort of like a trend with City. I don't think it's random either. I think there's something about the way they play, the way they like sort of let themselves go a bit. If they are leading by quite a lot of goals, they do just tend to concede sometimes. Ederson isn't the best shot stopper either, so I think there's just a lot of reasons for why they don't keep clean sheets. But with the fixtures that they have coming up now, they have really good chances to getting clean sheets, especially against Fulham and Southampton at home. The thing with Lewis that is kind of worrying is the fact that he is a bit of a minutes risk, but I think just based off of what I've seen when City don't have Rodri, it seems like Lewis plays most of the games. I think he's actually going to be pretty good for game time as well. Lewis, and when he does plays super attackingly. He's 4.7, really cheap price for one of the best teams in the league. So I think for that reason, he should just be in the team. But I did consider a different City player that I'm going to talk about as well towards the end of the video. But yeah, let's move on to number 9, which is going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's still in the team. Tougher fixtures coming up now, but I think also Liverpool are the type of team that are kind of fixture-proof-ish. Obviously, tougher fixtures are going to be tougher for Liverpool players as well, but I don't think it's going to affect them too much, especially like a home game to Chelsea. I think Liverpool could easily both keep a clean sheet and get attacking returns from that game, and I think that's the biggest allure to Trent Alexander-Arnold. He is someone that can keep clean sheets, and he's also, we've seen in the past, can score a free kick, can get assists, super involved in Liverpool's attacking play. So he's just a really good player, and for that reason I want to keep him. He is a bit expensive, and it is probably something that has to be addressed eventually if you want to have more attacking players for a pretty high price. But I think Trent still has enough value. He is basically like a premium asset for only 7 million, which is really cheap. So yeah, I think Trent is a really good player still. The Crystal Palace game will be pretty telling. I think that should be a game where he can have assists or potentially even goals, and he also can get clean sheets. But if Liverpool disappoint and concede in that game, maybe next week is the time to get rid of Trent. That could be the case, but I think that Chelsea at home game isn't the worst. Arsenal away obviously is going to be tough, but like I said, Arsenal do tend to set up more defensively against the bigger sides, so that could also be easily be a 0-0 game where Trent gets a clean sheet there as well. And then they have Brighton, then they have some easier fixtures after that. So I still think Trent is a good pick, but I sort of see the argument to why you go without him, but I just think he's just too good of a FPL asset to not go with him. So yeah, he's in the squad as well at number 9. Number 10, we have Mykolenko. It's basically down to price and fixtures. You can see the fixtures there are really good. Mykolenko's 4.3, really cheap enabler, really nice player to have as like your first guy off the bench or second guy off the bench for a really cheap price. I think also Everton with Branthwaite now back in the fold, looking a lot better defensively. They look much better defensively against Crystal Palace at least last game. And I think Mykolenko is someone that has a bit of goal threat, has a bit of assist threat as well on top of that. So all of that put together, I think Mykolenko is a really good player to have. He comes in at number 10 for that reason. I think Everton are going to be a lot better going forward this season with Branthwaite back. I think it's just that important to them. So Mykolenko for 4.3 is a really cheap price. People said he was cheap at 4.5 at the start of the season. And yes, Everton have disappointed, but now they have replaced Michael Keane with Jared Branthwaite, and that is such a huge plus that they're going to be better defensively going forward this season. So Mykolenko comes in at number 10. Number 11, we have Tyler Dibling from Southampton. You can see those two easy fixtures there against Leicester at home and Everton at home. Yes, Everton is going to be tougher now with Branthwaite back, but I still think Dibling has a chance to do something there. But he is mostly just an enabler, an 8th attacker to have on the bench most game weeks. But that Leicester at home game is also really good. So if you want to bench potentially Rodgers away to Fulham, that's a tough-ish game for him. in between Champions League matches and stuff. If you want to play Dibling that week, I get it because he plays Leicester at home, and that's basically why we have him in the squad. He's someone that you could play in particular game weeks, but mostly he's just there to be a really cheap player to have, so you can spend the money on other players instead, basically. So yeah, really like Dibling. Also like the fact that he played striker last game, even though it wasn't for long. And he didn't really do much as a striker. Southampton struggled in that game in general, but it just shows his versatility and his potential to play a lot of minutes, despite being a really young player who's still up and coming and has shown a lot of good signs as a player so far. We also know Southampton from before. Their academy is really, really good, and he is just one of a lot of players that have come through that Southampton academy that can be really, really good. So yeah, for the cheap price, I think he's a really good pick, and he's number 11 for that reason, basically as an enabler. Number 12, we have Brennan Johnson. I was a bit unsure about doubling up on the Spurs attack. That's basically why I'm a bit hesitant when it comes to Johnson. I'm more convinced by Solanke, who's going to be the main striker and play every single game 90 minutes mostly. It seems like Johnson's minutes are pretty secure, and he has been fantastic this season. And he is also really, really young. You have to consider that as well. He can take that step up, like we've seen with Rodgers, for example. Brennan Johnson could just have his breakout year this season. And Spurs, like I mentioned before, look really, really, really impressive. So yeah, I've gone with a double up with Spurs midfielders. I'm not too confident about doubling up with Spurs. I still think the fixtures are like, they're good, obviously, but they're not like fantastic either. Like they are really good, but I don't know. I think Johnson is a good pick, and Brighton as well. Seeing how Brighton played against Chelsea with the high line that they have, Johnson and his pace could easily do something there in that game. So yeah, I quite like him for this game week. I think he's a really good player, and I think Spurs are a team that you could potentially double up or potentially even triple up on now with the fixtures that they have. So Johnson comes in at number 12 for that reason. Number 13, I have Sanchez in goal. Just don't really know what to do with the goalkeeper position. I don't think there's any like standout picks. I think Maltzels looks like a really good pick. Nottingham Forest have been good defensively. He was the player I was close to picking last week. I actually had him on the wildcard draft, but I didn't end up going with him in my own wildcard squad in the end. But he's been dropped out now for Sanchez, who I did pick in the end. Sanchez made two pretty big mistakes that made sure that Chelsea conceded last time against Brighton, but Chelsea have also had pretty good defensive numbers. I think Chelsea are better than what we expected. They are a traditional big six side, and Sanchez has proven that he can get a lot of saves this season as well, like he did in game weeks 4 and 5, where he got like 25 points in total, I think, from those two game weeks. So I don't know, Sanchez, he's a bit more expensive, or 0.2 more expensive than the other 4.5 goalkeepers, but I think he might be worth it because I think Chelsea might be better than what we expect. But yeah, I'm not completely sold on any goalkeepers, so that's why he's selected as number 13. Not super confident in him, but yeah, I think he's the best goalkeeper out of the bunch for this season so far. Number 14, we have Sepp van den Berg for Brentford. He played as a right back last time around in the back four. That was a big worry about him. Will he continue to play when they revert back to a back four? Still some questions because Rico Henry was out last game. When he comes back as left back, maybe they just switch the back line up and move everyone to the right, basically, and move Van den Berg from right back to right bench. That could happen, but again, he's 4.0. He's just a really cheap player to have on the end of the bench. Break in case of emergency, you use him. He also has some good games, so maybe if he proves in the next two game weeks that he is someone that you can reliably have and expect him to play 60 plus minutes, you could start him against Ipswich at home. When Trent plays Arsenal, for example, and Gabriel plays Liverpool, that could be a nice enabler for that game week if you want to bench Gabriel or Trent. But honestly, I wouldn't really advise benching either Gabriel or Trent because they can get attacking returns, they can get clean sheets from unlikely places. So personally, I would still bench Van den Berg in that game week. But maybe Lewis doesn't play as well. He's just a nice guy to have, like as a fifth option in defense, basically, if you need him to. And hopefully he continues to play, because if he plays as a right back, especially for Brentford, he's a really, really good asset for 4.0. So he comes in at number 14. Then my backup keeper at number 15, I picked Fabianski. He is the most likely to play. He's the most recent starting goalkeeper out of the 4.0 options, and also Areola. Lopetegui's come in for West Ham. We don't really know if he was going to stick with Areola or if he's going to switch to Fabianski. Fabianski is still a pretty decent goalkeeper, even for his age. So there is like a slight chance that he becomes the number one goalkeeper at some point this season. But yeah, he's basically just there because he has the best likelihood out of the 4.0 goalkeepers to play. We also know Areola has had some injury issues. He has had some back issues in the past that could also crop up Again, Fabianski could be the starting goalkeeper again for West Ham for that reason. But again, he's the 15th pick for a reason, because there's not really that many good 4.0 goalkeepers. And yeah, he's just the best of the bunch basically. But whether you go with him or Valdemarson, or if you're going to go with Joao Virginia, for example, if some 4.0 goalkeeper drops down to 3.9, I would pick him instead, just easily, even if he has no chance to play, because yeah, that's how little the backup goalkeeper is worth basically when you're going to play Sanchez pretty much each and every game week. So yeah, Fabianski comes in number 15. Fabianski is also marked in green. He's one of 5 players that are marked in green: Sanchez, Fabianski, Lewis, Van den Berg, and Johnson. 5 players in means that 5 players have dropped out, so I'm going to talk about them. And after I've talked about those players that dropped out since last time, I'm also going to talk about 3 players that have been close to being in the wildcard draft, but just didn't make the cut in the end. They are on the cusp. They're really close to being picked, but I didn't select them for some reason. But let's first go into the players that have been dropped since last time around. Starting with the number 6 pick last week, which was Semenyo. He had 2 really nice fixtures against Southampton and Leicester, and that's why I picked him. Now he has only 1 good fixture left. He got 7 points against Southampton, which was nice. He showed again his worth, how good he is. I think Bournemouth are really good, but I also think, or I think Semenyo especially is really good, but I think the fixtures for Bournemouth are starting to dry up now. He's going to get some tougher fixtures from game week 8 onwards. Game week 7, he has a really good fixture against Leicester, so I think anyone that wildcarded in game week 6, like me, for example, have an advantage there, because Semenyo, for his price, is really, really good in that game. But instead, you get Brennan Johnson, who plays against Brighton, which I think is a really good fixture as well. So it's not that big of a downgrade, or it is potentially even an upgrade, because Johnson is more expensive and plays for a better team. But yeah, Semenyo just drops out because the fixtures are worse long term than what Johnson's are. So yeah, Semenyo drops out for that reason, but he looks like a really good pick, especially for Gaming 7, and I'm excited to have him still in my team for Gaming 7 as well, personally. But on a wildcard, I would have to sell him. Gabriel was a big thing both for Gaming 6 wildcard and Gaming 7 wildcard. I think there's a big decision to be made between Lewis and Gabriel, or potentially even going with both. I did consider that as well. I think Gabriel would be my player to pick if I didn't go with Trent. He's actually one of the players on the cusp section. So if I went without Trent Alexander-Arnold, I think it would be between Gabriel and Pedro Porro for my final defender. But I think Trent is just someone that I prefer still, because he's more nailed both in terms of minutes and in terms of potentially getting attacking returns and potentially even clean sheets, even though the fixtures are tough. I think Trent is just a better pick, even for $1 million more than what Guardiola costs. But it's mainly down to Guardiola versus Lewis. Who do you want to go with out of those two? I think Lewis plays more attackingly when he plays, and I think he's going to keep playing as well with Rodri being out. On top of that, so I think the playing time is just good enough for Lewis to favor Lewis, especially for the price difference as well. But Guardiola scored last game week. Lewis didn't do that, and there's a reason for that, because Guardiola takes more shots and stuff. So I think it's very even between Lewis and Guardiola. I could pick Guardiola, but I think Lewis is just, for that cheap price, I think he's a really good pick, especially when you have the likes of Mykolenko and Van den Berg, who could step in if Lewis doesn't play. And especially if we get leaks that Lewis doesn't play, you could just sub in Mykolenko or Van den Berg, who have really good fixtures as well. So I think you're just good enough. The cover is just good enough for you to go with Lewis rather than Guardiola, even though Guardiola is more of a secure player when it comes to minutes, basically. As my lighting is going out, and yeah, I'll turn that back on again right now. Sorry about that. I could also cut that from the video, but I tend to not cut stuff from the video. Anyways, let's move on to the next player. Then we have Cells, number 10 from last game week. I did drop him for Sanchez, like I mentioned. I think Cells is still a really good pick. I think Nottingham Forest are a really good defense. They did concede last time around, but that was from a pretty fluky penalty that Cells almost saved as well. He was really close to getting 15 points, and if he had saved that penalty, I probably would have had him in this squad as well. I would have been so mad about going with Sanchez over Cells, but luckily for me, Cells just managed to concede that penalty, got 2 points, the same as Sanchez, and I've just gone with Sanchez just because Chelsea are thought to be a better team, and also, yeah, that's pretty much it, basically. But yeah, I still think Cells is a good player. He's probably my second favorite goalkeeper, and then Flecken would be a third. Raya, I'm not completely sold on, because I think Arsenal are just better to go with their attackers, but I also get the appeal with Raya because Arsenal are really good defensively. So those are the 4 goalkeepers I would consider, but Cells really close to making it, but he didn't make it in the end. Then Jacob Greaves for Ipswich. I just think Van den Berg is better. He plays more offensively, plays for a better team on paper at least, and has same-ish fixtures. So I think Berg is just a better pick currently, but Greaves is the more secure pick. We know he's going to play 90 minutes every single game week, and I think Ipswich have been sort of hard done by defensively to not get a clean sheet so far. So Greaves is still a good pick as well. Pretty much just 50-50 between him and Berg. I think both of them are decent. You could go with both, but I think Mykolenko is just good enough, 4.3 more. So yeah, I'm going against Greaves for that reason. Joao Virginia was picked in the wildcard draft because I expected him to go, or hoped that he would go down in price to 3.9. Like I mentioned with Fabianski, if Virginia goes down to 3.9, I would pick him in an instant. So it's basically just down to the price. If he's worth 3.9, I think it's a better goalkeeper to have as a backup than Fabianski, just because of the price and that slight edge you get from getting slightly more money. So that's basically him and why he was picked 15th last week. But you can also see on the cusp, I have 3 players that were close to making the squad that I haven't included in the squad. And I just want to talk about those guys and some other players potentially that also almost missed out. So on the cusp, I didn't actually have a Guardiola. I did mention that I was going to include him in the on the cusp section, but I guess since I already talked about him, I could just talk about Pedro Porro instead in this section. But obviously, the main guy, the main player missing from the draft, which most people would expect from a Wildcard 7 draft, is Cole Palmer. I think most people that are looking to Wildcard now are looking to bring in Palmer just because of the 25 points he got last time around. He is a fantastic player. I think he is a terrific pick still, but I think the next 2 matches makes me just want to go with Saka instead, and then I have a pretty easy swap from Saka to Palmer in Game Week 9. I think that would be my tactic. I have some money left in the bank as well with this squad. You should have that as well, since my team value isn't the best. So if you have enough money saved up, you could easily do Saka to Palmer in Game Week 9, and I think that's going to be better than going with Palmer now and miss out on the Saka fixture against Southampton. You could go with both, but then you'll miss out on the strikers as well. I think Havertz is going to be really good this game week. Solanke, obviously, I hold in really high regard. So yeah, for that reason, Palmer drops out because I just don't have enough money to have him on top of having Saka, Haaland, Havertz, Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's not like last season when Palmer was 5.0, but I still think Palmer is a fantastic pick. I don't begrudge anyone going with him on the wildcard, but I think personally I'm going to wait for Game Week 9 to pounce on Palmer. But he is amazing. I still think Nicholas Jackson is really good as well. It's just the next 2 fixtures, Nottingham Forest, which is a good defense, and Liverpool, which is a tough team to play, especially at Anfield. Just going to go without Palmer now and bring him in for Saka in Game Week 9 most likely. McNeil was really close to being picked as well. I did mention that Johnson was someone that I was a bit iffy to in terms of picking because I didn't want to double up on the Spurs attack. I think McNeil is someone that you should definitely consider, but I just something about having him as my 4th midfielder felt a bit wrong. I think as a 5th midfielder, maybe he's better. Could go with him rather than Dibling, but then again, you would bench him most game weeks, so that doesn't really make sense either. But I think McNeil is a really good player. You can see from the fixtures that they have. Newcastle at home, which is a good fixture. Newcastle are worse away from home than they are at home by far. Ipswich is a decent game. Fulham, okay defense. That's also a decent game. And then Southampton as well in the game week after that. I think McNeil is really good fixtures. He plays under number 10 now, which is helping him a lot. He scored 2 goals last time around, and I think he's a really good enabler for that price at 5.5 in midfield. I think he's a really pick there. So I did consider him rather than Johnson, but I've gone with the more upside in the Spurs player, who has, again, pretty easy fixtures in Johnson there. So yeah, McNeil drops out, or doesn't drop out, but he's not included for that reason. And then finally, Pedro Porro. I did mention that I like Spurs and their fixtures, but I also have mentioned in the past as well that I'm not sure if he's as attacking as he has been earlier in the season. I still think Pedro Porro is a really good pick. Would potentially pick him over Trent to get more money in the squad. Maybe you can find the money if you, I don't know. Maybe you can find the money to keep Saka as well beyond Game Week 9 if you downgrade Trent and downgrade Havertz to get Palmer in for Johnson potentially as well later on in the season. But yeah, Pedro Porro, I think he's really good. I think Spurs are better defensively than what we give them credit for, and I think Pedro Porro has the ability to get attacking returns as well, as he's shown in the past, scoring goals, getting assists, being just pretty much involved defensively all across the board. So he's also someone that I would consider, especially on a wildcard. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this wildcard draft. I think this is the wildcard I would do if I was on wildcard in Game Week 7 myself. I have pretty much covered all the bases now. I think the Palmer thing is the main thing. Do you want to add him already? Do you have enough faith in him and Chelsea to break down the likes of Nottingham Forest and Liverpool? Or do you just want to save yourself the hassle of bringing him in? Because in my view with this team, I would bring him in Game Week 9, but maybe you don't want to book in transfers. Maybe you just want to pick the squad that you're going to have for a long time now. You want to save as many transfers as possible and have that flexibility. So I get it if you want to go with Palmer. I would not go with him rather than Saka. I would go with him on top of Saka if I were to choose Palmer in the squad, because I think Saka and Southampton is just probably too good to deny. But like I mentioned, I think it's better to just have Saka for the next 2 game weeks and then sell him for Palmer after that. So that's pretty much it for the weekly wildcard draft for game week 7. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you subscribe so you can see more wildcard drafts for each and every game week for the rest of the season and all the other videos that I make. You can check out the videos that I made earlier this week as well. I've gone with a review for the game week 6 wildcard and what I did for my own wildcard there. My team is actually pretty close to this team, which I'm pretty happy about because yeah, there's not too many changes that I would have done from game week 6 to game week 7. You can also watch the video that I did on all the fixtures from game week 6, where I talk more in depth about each and every fixture and what happened in those fixtures. And with that out of the way, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.